Hi and welcome. I'm Andy Mioch and you're watching A News. Here are the headlines. Ukraine says preliminary deal on minerals agreed with the US. Trump says that Zelensky is set to visit Washington on Friday. Russian and US diplomats will meet in Istanbul tomorrow, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. Pope Francis remains in a critical but stable condition as thousands pray for the pontiff's recovery. Thank you for tuning in. Ukraine says it has reached a preliminary deal on mineral resources with the United States, with Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky saying no security guarantees have been agreed. Zelensky described the deal as a framework and said that the success of the agreement that would see Ukraine hand over revenue from some of its mineral resources to the US depends on Donald Trump. He couldn't confirm his trip to Washington on Friday, adding that teams are working on it. Trump had earlier said Zelensky is likely to visit the White House on Friday to sign the rare earth minerals deal to pay for US military aid to defend against Russia's full-scale invasion.
Of course, this agreement is about economics, but I asked for there to be at least an understanding that we are seeing things the same way, that all of it is part of future security guarantees. So, even in the framework agreement, I wanted for there to be at least a sentence, security guarantees for Ukraine. As far as I was briefed by the government officials, this sentence is there now. I don't remember, probably in point 10 or in some other. But it is important that it is there.
Key details of the deal reached between Ukraine and the US have not been made public. However, Ukraine's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said the deal envisages an investment fund for the country's reconstruction, with Kyiv and Washington managing the fund on, quote, equal terms.
The US and Ukraine have agreed on the terms of a draft minerals deal, according to top officials in Kyiv and Washington. It's central to Ukraine's push to win US support as President Donald Trump seeks to rapidly end the war with Russia. The agreement marks a significant development in US-Ukraine relations. According to sources, the minerals deal would grant the United States access to Ukraine's vast reserves of rare earth minerals, critical for industries ranging from semiconductors to defense. Ukraine's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said the preliminary agreement will allow for the creation of a joint investment fund of the two countries for the reconstruction of Ukraine.
The government of Ukraine's contribution is 50% of all revenues received from the future monetization of all relevant natural resource assets that are in state ownership, as well as relevant infrastructure facilities.
President Trump says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will visit Washington later this week, where the deal is expected to be finalized.
I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal, very big deal.
Ukraine holds some of Europe's largest deposits of minerals, including lithium, titanium, and zirconium resources that have only gained strategic importance as global tensions over supply chains have intensified. This deal is being framed as a win-win, an economic boost for Kyiv, and a way for Washington to curb its dependence on China.
Trump wants rare earths because the American economy is highly dependent on Chinese sources, and it's an economic and national security risk. So, reason number one. Reason number two is that there are now so many American companies who are able to mine and produce rare earths within the US. Reason number two. And reason number three is that, there is Ukraine, and we have these commodities right there. And in order to avoid that the Chinese will take over Ukrainian rare earths commodities and build up potential mines there, it's an option for the Americans. And reason number four is to make the Ukrainians pay for the American military support.
Trump's push for a deal also signals a potential shift in how the US views its support for Kyiv. Some experts believe that Washington is looking for ways to make Ukraine financially justify the military aid it has received. While the minerals deal is being framed as an economic opportunity, analysts warn it carries significant strategic implications. Trump's desire to rapidly end the war could mean Ukraine is pressured into economic or territorial compromises that could shift the balance of power in the region. One major concern is that many of Ukraine's rare earth reserves lie in Russian-occupied territories, making any future mining operations subject to negotiation with Moscow. In regions like Luhansk and Donetsk, where fighting has been ongoing since 2014, resource extraction would be complicated by security risks and geopolitical tensions.
Because even though the global rare earth supply continues to be relatively stable, with a few exceptions, rare earth elements, because of their strategic significance, do unfortunately tend to feature in broader geopolitical disputes. And so the elements that are under question with respect to Ukraine are currently located in areas that are Russia controlled.
For Ukraine, securing US investment in critical minerals could strengthen its economic position. But as Trump accelerates efforts to negotiate an end to the war, concerns are growing that Kyiv may be forced into concessions that could reshape the security landscape in Europe, potentially leaving Ukraine dependent on the very powers it has sought to distance itself from. Zelensky's visit to Washington later this week may provide clearer answers, but for now, the future of US-Ukraine relations remains uncertain.
A group of activists gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv. They called for not signing the minerals deal without the U.S. having provided security guarantees to Ukraine first.
Protests took place outside the US Embassy in Kyiv as a group of activists voiced opposition to a minerals deal between Ukraine and the United States. Holding anti-Trump posters, the protesters argued that the agreement should only be signed once military actions cease or after security guarantees are provided. Some are concerned that the agreement between Ukraine and the United States could due to pressure or manipulation considering the current situation of the country, while some people are open to the deal if Ukraine receives the necessary security guarantees.
We should not be in a hurry because it looks like blackmail and manipulation. It can be signed after military actions are over, or at least after we receive guarantees that the United States will provide us with military support.
If there are security guarantees and Ukrainian people and troops agree to that, then I will happily agree too. And in this case, let America and Trump be prosperous.
This protest comes after the US and Ukraine reached an agreement on a draft minerals deal, giving Washington access to Ukraine's critical raw materials. Ukraine is estimated to hold about 5% of the world's critical raw materials, including 19 million tons of graphite, a key material for electric vehicle batteries. The country also possesses a third of Europe's lithium deposits, crucial for current batteries. The draft deal between the US and Ukraine aims to secure access to these minerals, but protesters are calling for stronger military assurances before any final agreement is signed.
Russian and U.S. diplomats will meet in Istanbul tomorrow, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said, for talks on resolving bilateral disputes that form part of a wider dialogue they see as crucial to ending the Ukraine war. Lavrov said the talks would focus on creating better conditions for Russian diplomats in the United States and their U.S. counterparts in Russia after a series of rows over staffing levels and embassy properties. Meanwhile, Russia and Ukraine continue with drone attacks on each other's territories. Kyiv reported significant damage and casualties, while Moscow claimed to have intercepted a large number of Ukrainian drones.
Overnight drone strikes have hit multiple cities, including Kharkiv and Kyiv Oblast, overnight. That's according to Kyiv. Authorities say its air defences shot down 110 of the 177 drones, while another 66 were reportedly lost due to electronic warfare measures. One person has been killed, and it's reported 2 people were injured in Bucha. Firefighters discovered the victim while battling a blaze in a 2-story home. In another part of the district, a 20-year-old woman and a 44-year-old man sustained wounds, while 5 homes were damaged. Meanwhile, in Kharkiv, 1 person was killed and 6 others were hurt after an apartment block was hit. Local officials say Russian forces used Shahed-type drones, striking at 2-minute intervals. However, Moscow claims its air defences destroyed 130 Ukrainian drones overnight.
Pope Francis had a quiet night and is resting, according to the Vatican. As the pontiff remains in critical condition, prayers for his recovery are pouring in from all around the world.
Pope Francis remains in critical condition for the 4th consecutive day, currently battling double pneumonia, prompting an outpouring of prayers from across the globe. He's received a special amount of love and prayers from the Argentinian community, as the country holds a deep connection to him.
Well, he is a great leader. He is a great leader, without a doubt. I think that not only for Catholics, but he is a great political leader as well. I think that both believers and atheists or agnostics, I think that at least they respect him a lot and listen to him. I think he is a great leader, Pope Francis, and a great man of God as well, of course.
Pope Francis, born in Buenos Aires, became the first pope from the Southern Hemisphere and the first non-European pope in nearly 1,300 years when he was elected in 2013. His focus on mercy and support for the underprivileged has earned him respect and admiration globally. At the Vatican, Cardinal Luis Tagle led prayers in St. Peter's Square with hundreds of pilgrims from countries as far away as Brazil and the United States joining in solidarity. Ave Maria. Devotees have gathered to express their deep affection for the Pope's legacy of compassion.
I'm feeling that the whole world is praying for Pope Francis, and you know, he's really been a great witness to the world. I think of the mercy of God, his way of showing that this is the core. This is really what Christianity is about: mercy and love.
Benedetta fra le donne, e benedetto è il frutto del tuo seno, Gesù.
I'm very emotional. This evening I'm here to pray for Pope Francis with some Italian-American friends, with so much gratitude for this Pope, for the gift of a bright pontificate that has put at the centre, as we know, mercy, which means embracing the last, the poor, as the Lord taught us.
Despite the grave situation, the latest health update from the Vatican assures that Pope Francis's condition remains stable, though his prognosis is still guarded. Doctors are monitoring his condition closely, and the pontiff continues his treatment at Rome's hospital, where he's now spent 12 days. It's his longest hospital stay during his papacy.
The European Commission unveiled its €100 billion plan to support clean manufacturing while remaining competitive. Its critics see it as deregulation that could weaken workers' rights and environmental protections.
The European Commission unveiled a €100 billion plan to boost EU-made clean manufacturing as part of its Clean Industrial Deal. The initiative aims to help European industries struggling with weak demand, cheap imports, and higher energy costs compared to the US and China. The deal includes collaboration with the European Investment Bank to ease costs for renewable energy contracts and support grid manufacturers. The Commission also proposed creating an EU critical raw materials centre to jointly purchase key metals and minerals for the energy transition. While the proposal has been welcomed by some, it has faced opposition from trade unions and environmental groups who argue that the plans could lead to deregulation, weakening workers' rights and environmental protections. Activists staged protests outside the Commission's headquarters in Brussels. The deal, which also includes easing state aid regulations and lowering energy costs for industries, is central to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's strategy to revive Europe's industrial sector. It will be presented to industry representatives in Antwerp this week.
Chile's power grid slowly came back online after a major outage hit the country on Tuesday. The blackout prompted the government to declare a state of emergency and impose a curfew that has now been lifted.
99% of Chile was in darkness on Tuesday. Millions of people were left struggling without electricity, internet or mobile services. The country's grid operator reported a high-voltage transmission disruption that crippled the power network during a severe heat wave. However, the exact cause of the failure remains unclear. The blackout extended from Arica in the north to Los Lagos in the south, paralysing daily life across 14 of the 16 regions. The world's largest copper producer was forced to suspend mining operations, while water shortages worsened as electric-powered pumps ceased to function. Public transport in Santiago came to a standstill, with the metro system completely shut down and buses overwhelmed. Traffic lights failed, causing widespread congestion and stranding thousands of commuters for hours.
There is nothing. Cash, money, metro, nothing. Now, we were having lunch and the light went off.
We usually take about 35 minutes to get home, but we've been waiting for the bus for about 5 hours, and we've been sitting here for more than 3 hours because it's full. The buses are full, they don't want to stop.
Authorities confirm that emergency generators were activated to keep hospitals, government offices and prisons operational. However, no emergency situations have been reported. The Interior Minister clarified that the outage was caused by a transmission line failure in the north, ruling out the possibility of a cyber attack. Officials say that power has been restored to half of the 8 million homes affected by the outage on Tuesday night. The government has imposed an overnight curfew until 6 a.m. Wednesday to ensure public safety and aid recovery efforts. Chilean authorities are intensifying investigations while continuing efforts to restore full power across the country.
A fresh wave of gang violence has hit Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. Armed groups attacked the Delmas neighborhood, leaving several dead and forcing residents to flee.
Homes were torched, people were killed, and terrified families escaped with whatever they could carry in the capital of Haiti, according to local rights groups. It's after armed gangs attacked a residential area in Port-au-Prince in the Delmas neighborhood. Some pushed bodies in wheelbarrows as gunfire echoed in the streets. Local rights groups say the exact death toll remains unclear as violence spreads. And for residents, it's been a harrowing time.
I used to live at Delmas 30, but now I don't know whether to go up or down, whether to turn left or right. Why are we in this situation? Wherever they go, we run. We haven't slept since the day before yesterday because everyone was panicking, but now they've finished us at Delmas 30. Today is the end.
More than 1 million Haitians have been internally displaced due to a years-long conflict. With no police response yet, residents are left in fear and desperation.
A large crowd of mourners gathered south of Tel Aviv to commemorate Shiri Bibas and her 2 sons, Kfir and Ariel. They were killed after being kidnapped during the Hamas attack in 2023. Their bodies were released last week.
Thousands of mourners gathered with Israeli flags and lined the streets south of Tel Aviv in Israel to remember Shiri Bibas and her 2 young sons, Kfar and Ariel, during their funeral procession in Rishon LeZion and through several other cities. They were kidnapped during the Hamas attack on October the 7th, 2023. Their bodies were returned last week as part of the ceasefire deal agreed between Hamas and Israel. It's an emotional day, not only for the family, but for those who want to pay their respects.
I've come here to pay my respect to the Bibas family, Ariel, Kfir and Shiri, that were murdered in captivity. It's a very tragic and unfathomable event.
Shiri's body was initially misidentified during a handover. However, Israeli authorities confirmed it was hers. Her husband, Yarden, was also taken from their home in the kibbutz near Oz. He was separated from the family and released on February the 1st. The Bibas family has become a symbol of the tragic consequences of the Hamas-led attacks.
In defense industry news, production of Turkey's fourth-generation battle tank has started, and the Altay tanks are set to be delivered to the country's armed forces this year.
Turkey will begin production of its fourth generation of Altay battle tank. 3 of them will be delivered to the country's armed forces this year, with more to follow in the coming years. They are expected to provide enhanced armored protection, advanced firepower, and high mobility to meet modern combat requirements. Head of the Presidency of Defense Industries, Haluk Görgün, visited the BMC Ankara Armed Vehicle Production Facility in Kahraman-Kazan. He says the site will not only manufacture armed vehicles, but also the engines and power transmission systems they require.
This year, we will deliver the first serial-produced tanks to our army, as promised. The Altay tank project, involving over 600 firms and led by BMC with Aselsan, Roketsan and Havelsan, integrates advanced technology. Production begins in August, with 85 tanks planned, 3 in 2025, 11 in 2026, 41 in 2027 and 30 in 2028.
An additional 165 tanks are planned for production in the following years, bringing the total to 250 units. This marks a key milestone in Turkey's push for self-sufficiency in defense technology and its commitment to equipping its armed forces with cutting-edge military assets.
Georgia's Prime Minister has voiced support for the U.S. plan to end the Russia-Ukraine war after Tbilisi did not participate in a vote at the United Nations on a resolution calling for Russian withdrawal from Ukraine. Nini Nikolaishvili has more.
Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze has announced that its government supports United States peace plan for ending the Russia-Ukraine war, expressing hopes for its success. Speaking on February 25, Kobakhidze emphasized that the US-backed UN resolution was prepared without deep state's interference and reiterated Georgia's broader support for Ukraine. However, Georgia did not participate in a separate UN General Assembly voting on February 23, which called for the immediate withdrawal of the Russian forces from Ukraine. The resolution, supported by 93 countries, was co-authored by Georgia in an earlier draft, but did not receive the final vote. Kobakhidze defended the country's record, stating that Georgia had joined over 600 international documents condemning Russia's aggression and supporting Ukraine's sovereignty. The decision not to vote has drawn criticism for some domestic and international voices who argue it signals a shift in Georgia's foreign policy. However, the government maintains that its approach prioritizes peace and stability in country and avoiding direct conflict with Russia. Tensions between Tbilisi and Kiev remains high, with a recently appointed charge d'affaires in Georgia urging partners to back the resolution. Meanwhile, relations between Georgia and its Western allies, including the EU and US, have been strained over past geopolitical disagreements. I'm Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, News.
Kazakhstan and China are exploring collaboration on the Trans-Afghan Transport Corridor, which would connect Central and South Asia. Fariza Kalimurzina brings more on that from Almaty.
Kazakhstan's national railway operator Kazakhstan Temirzholo and China Communications Construction Company discussed cooperation in the development of the Trans-Afghan Transport Corridor. The talks took place in Beijing with the participation of the chairman of both companies. In April 2024, Kazakhstan announced its readiness to participate in projects for the construction of railways from Temes to Mazar-e-Sharif, Kabul, Peshawar, and from Herat to Kandahar to Spin Boldak. This railway will run from the western border of Turkmenistan through Afghanistan to Pakistan and beyond to India. As it was stated, Kazakhstan will supply materials for the upper structure of the railroads, including ties and fasteners. The new transport corridor, which will connect Central and South Asia, is expected to reduce transportation time between the countries of the region by nearly 10 times and lower transportation costs. During the negotiations, the construction of an infrastructure project at the Georgian port of Anakle and prospects for expanding cooperation in the logistics sector were also discussed. Additionally, China Communications Construction Company is involved in other projects in Kazakhstan, such as the construction of a pumped storage hydropower plant, with an agreement reached in July 2024. Meanwhile, another Chinese company, Zhejiang Communications Construction Group, signed a contract with the Ministry of Transport of Tajikistan for the construction of the longest bridge in Central Asia. The project is valued at about $60 million. The 1,500-meter-long bridge will be built in the Nurabad district as part of the third phase of the construction of the Obigar-Nurabad road. The new bridge will serve as an alternative to the existing route, which will be flooded during the construction of the Rogun hydroelectric power station and will connect the banks of the Sukap River. This project is part of Tajikistan's strategy to transform the country into a key transit hub in the region. It's reported that construction of the bridge will begin soon, and the Chinese constructor plans to complete it within 4 years. The bridge is being built under the directive of Tajikistan's President Emomali Rahmon, who emphasized the strategic importance of this project for the country's economy. The discussed infrastructure projects signal a major transformation in regional logistics, enhancing connectivity between Central and South Asia. The Trans-Afghan Railway corridor will significantly reduce transportation time and costs, fostering economic integration and trade between Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. At the same time, infrastructure developments like Nakle Port Project and Tajikistan's new bridge demonstrate the growing role of strategic transport routes in regional development. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
Chinese companies are rapidly adopting DeepSeek's latest AI model to improve productivity and services after its impressive debut earlier this year. The artificial intelligence model is being integrated into tech, telecom, finance, healthcare, and energy sectors.
DeepSeek shot to global prominence last month with the release of its AI model, DeepSeek R1, praised for its powerful performance, cost-effectiveness, and open-source advantages. Now, major Chinese tech and telecom firms are embedding it into platforms, from social media to cloud services. But its reach is going even further, transforming sectors like manufacturing, finance, healthcare, and energy. In the energy sector, China's national oil and gas pipeline network group, PipeChina, is using DeepSeek to refine operations, improve pipeline safety, and boost energy transmission accuracy.
The time it takes to generate production plans at the Oil and Gas Control Center has been reduced from 4 hours to just minutes, with a 10% improvement in accuracy.
The impact extends to manufacturing, where telecom giant ZTE has integrated DeepSeek into its smartphones, streamlining AI functions into a single interface.
By integrating DeepSeek, we have developed a function akin to a multi-expert system. Users can access various AI functions through a single interface instead of having to switch between multiple apps.
And in healthcare, hospitals are using the technology to generate diagnostic opinions in seconds, while pharmaceutical firms are leveraging it to accelerate drug development. Financial institutions are also tapping into DeepSeek's potential, using it for market forecasting, risk assessment, and fraud detection, helping to create a safer investment environment. Experts say AI is at the heart of a new technological revolution, and China's industries are embracing it at full speed.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you for watching, and do stay tuned to A News.